Alexander. Thank you for inviting me here. I think real briefly before I start my program, because it goes together very well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our club. So I'm a member of the Collinsville, Maryville, Caseyville Rotary Club that's really based in Collinsville, and the majority of our membership is from Collinsville, which is not how we necessarily want it. What's kind of important, I've been in that club for almost 8 years. Most of my time as the chief of police in Collinsville. And when I joined, we had not a lot of energy. We had a few good members, but not a lot of energy, not a lot of members. A typical, I'm not even sure what the roster said at that time, but I know that a typical meeting might have had 7 to 10 members at that meeting. In recent years, we've been recognized as one of the quickest, most rapidly growing clubs in membership within the district. And more importantly to me, I think there's what we notice and know within the club and the community is the growing enthusiasm and energy. So with that, with the program I'm about to talk about, when we started this thing, we did it with probably about 15 active members. So the program I'm here to talk about is called Metro East Teen Driver Safety Days. And by the way, the PowerPoint, I put this thing together in a hurry for the district conference, and there's nothing real fancy about it. So at the time that this thing started, we had a very energetic Kiwanis Club in Collinsville. And by the way, more so in my role as chief of police, I like to communicate and be part and I'm always happy to be at all these meetings for the various clubs in Collinsville, whether it be the Lions, the Kiwanis, the Rotary. And what I knew several years ago was that our Kiwanis Club had a lot more energy than we did. And one of the things that I admired was they had a signature event that actually involved the police department. They pretty much lay it out for us. They fundraise and they put together what turns into a Shop with a Cop event that we don't, my office said we have to do nothing other than show up, and we get, all the positive that goes with that interaction with the community. So I loved that event. And our Rotary, we really wanted to come up with a signature event. So I was at the Illinois Chiefs Conference up north. My wife was there. She worked from home, so she was able to work from the room while we were there. And there was a presentation on an event that the Oswego, Illinois Rotary Club does. It's an event, it's something they call Operation Impact. And it's the short version of it is they integrate themselves with the driver's education programs in that town and bring very impactful presentations to driver's education on a weekly basis. They did that because they had a super tragic accident in town where people were pointing fingers at whose fault is it, and they stood up with the police and said, "Hey, let's quit pointing fingers and let's do something." So super impressive presentation. And when it was done, I ran back to the room and I said, "Man, I got it." Clearly a nexus to my job too, the public safety part of it, but it's like, I got it. We're going to do this. When I took it back to our club, everyone was really interested in it. But one of our members who works for State Farm said, "Hey, man, I've been to something similar but different." And what I didn't realize that before my time in Collinsville, State Farm used to host, along with the Illinois Department of Transportation, an event similar to the one I'm going to tell you about. So Jody White, my fellow Rotarian, and I went on a field trip to Williamson County, where they do and have done now for probably 14 years, a Williamson County Traffic Safety Days. Again, similar to what I'm going to tell you. So the club adopted it. We realized very soon we were going to have a pretty large budget to put this thing together. So our first event was at the Gateway Convention Center on October 16th and 17th, 2018. We had, at first event, we had 500 students from Collinsville High School, essentially their whole sophomore class. And that was one of our goals. We wanted to obviously serve our community. We wanted to serve much more than that also. So it was important. We had one day was dedicated to all of the Collinsville High School students from the sophomore class. And again, that was selected kind of as that pre-driver's education age, tried to hit them right then. And we may adjust that in the future a little bit. That first year also, we had students from Belleville East, Belleville West, Triad, and Freeburg. Those we had to just were limited on space, time, and money. We were able to take about 100 students from each class. So we reached out to them and asked that they bring at least their driver's education students. So to the best of my knowledge, that's kind of where they were drawing their kids from. Is all we required from the schools was to provide the transportation, to get their kids to the Gateway Center in Collinsville by the time that we told them to be there. And then again, to provide transportation home. So that first year, our budget was about $30,000. That included the facility, which is expensive, the AV stuff, also expensive. Presenters, which I'll tell you a little more about. Considering what we get from them, not quite as expensive. Again, a big part of our cost is facilities in this thing and feeding the kids. And so we do this, we bring them in, not going to make a ton of sense, probably, especially in the small version I have here. But we set up the day where when the students arrive, they all go into one common area. So at one time, 400 to 500 students sit down, and it's our keynote speaker. And this is what's different. We didn't steal any one event that we went and looked at. We took it and added kind of our customization to it. And so we have a speaker that still is with us now through our third event that we've done, named Sarah Pomzo Evans. And Sarah was a star volleyball player when she was young, made some bad decisions, or made at least one really bad decision. And it was a drunk driving accident in which it altered her. First of all, she almost died, but she's an amputee. She's scarred up. Doesn't look good at all. And she uses that as part of her motivational speaking tour that she's done now for many years. So Sarah starts the day, and essentially as the keynote speaker. The kids get off the bus, screwing around, having fun, and she draws them in for the day, because when they leave her, I mean, it's a silent room, it's impactful. She engages with different students in the room. And that's how we start the day. After that, the students are broke up into groups, smaller groups, about 100 each, and move through the day through a schedule, which again, without sitting down and explaining this right in front of you, not much of a visual. But as they break up in those four groups, our volunteers lead them with signs through the hallways, colored signs for the groups, to their specific room that they're going to be in for the additional presenters. To explain the presenters a little bit, we get collaboration with the Illinois State Police in this. Although we like to say this is a CMC Rotary event, it is as far as the sponsor part of it, but it's very much involved with the help of the Illinois State Police and the Collinsville Police Department, and then many sponsors. So the state police provide us a rollover simulator, so they have personnel to do the presentation. So it simulates a rollover accident, a seatbelt convincer that simulates, and they can actually get in this and feel the impact of the benefit of a seatbelt. They provide us another presentation with motorcycle safety. We also, I mentioned Sarah Pomzo that we bring in, and it costs us some money to do that. And we have a group called Street Smart out of Florida. And actually my favorite of the presentations. And Street Smart's a group of paramedics. They have several of them that work for them. They send us two when we do this. I specifically request the same one just because you get comfortable with somebody. And so they send us two in, and their presentation brings, prior to the thing starting, they pick out two kids from the audience, they bring them up, and they go through scenarios as if these two have been involved in have made bad decisions. They're now involved in an accident, and they essentially push buttons. Everybody feels different things. Where you as a student might really like your fancy clothes. Well, they go through the part of cutting their clothes off. That's more important than other things to some. They go through the tubes they're sticking in. They just impactfully go through every part of this. They're great presenters. So those are our presenters through this event. Initial first event and first two, we also had some driving simulators. We had golf carts with the drunk goggles and things such as that. We'll get back to that. We had to streamline the 2021 version, which I think is more what we'll see in a video I have. We had a giant one with that. We have a semi-tractor trailer truck. It's called the No Zone exhibit, where cars in the blind spots, and the kids cycle through and sit in the truck and actually see what they don't see from a truck. So to have that perspective of where you're at, where you're not going to be seen because of the blind spots. So 2019, so 18 was the first event, successful. In 19, we expanded to a 3-day event, which means a 4-day rental of the Gateway Center, first day for setup, 3 days for presentations. That year we had a budget of $34,000. We had 1,300 students from the Metro East area. Same schools we mentioned earlier. We were able to add a few additional students from those schools, and then we brought Highland in that year. And by the way, as I mentioned these towns, there's got to be some of you in the room think, well, why isn't our city involved, or why isn't Edwardsville involved? It's not the reason Masando just simply invited me here after the district conference, but I realized it's an opportunity to talk to a community about possibilities to get those other schools in, because we've reached out to Edwardsville, some of the less served communities, East St. Louis, Madison, those high schools, we're trying to get them involved too. So anyway, that's kind of a side note to this, but I consider this the opportunity to get this program out there to try to get more schools from the Metro East involved. So in 19 we expanded, as I said, 20 was canceled. We were able to hold this thing October 19th to 21st of 2021, this past event. So this one, we made the decision to reduce it to a 2-day event and serve the Collinsville High School sophomore class and junior class. Essentially that class that missed it the year before, we really wanted to get focused on our students. We knew with the differing COVID restrictions that different schools may have, it would just be a nightmare to try to do this thing for multiple schools, but we really wanted to, get that continuity, get things going again. So it was this year with CHS sophomore and junior class. As we move to this year, 2022, the fall of this year, we have dates reserved. Those dates probably are off by one because that originally was a Sunday. Thursday will be a Monday through a Friday, set up on a Monday. We're going to do a 4-day event. So we're getting close to what our, that just never ending, what we hope, infinite game of trying to just keep improving this thing. So this year we will be a 4-day event, 4 days of actual presentations, getting back to those schools that we've had in the past and then trying to add more also. The picture to your left is Sarah Ponzo. She's an amputee. Her presentation is just really perfectly put together. After a video presentation starts with kind of decisions she made and her life before and how great it was. And then she enters the room from the back while they're kind of mesmerized by the video they're watching. And she comes in essentially in her tank top and shorts to show the disfiguration. And she's a special lady. Volunteers moving people around. The keynote speaker, that's the audience at the beginning. The picture with to your left is again the street smart presenter. The 2 kids up front, one of which in this scenario is gonna live and know that he, after recovering from substantial, knowing that the friend next to him is no longer alive because of the decisions he and they made together. As I mentioned, the state police, some of you may or may not have seen these things. If nothing else, you'll see them if you drive by District 11 in Collinsville, where they sit on the parking lot there fairly often. And should be able to give you a video that our video we put together for this. Apologize for the sound problems. Sorry about the sound. It had to be on my end, on my file, since the music was there, but I think you kind of get the point and the impact of the event. When we did this thing, again, I knew that, again, I wanted to be all Rotary. I knew that a lot of, again, of my passion for it came from what I experienced for the last 37 years of my life. But neither here nor there, I'm not far from a retirement next year too. I plan to stay involved with this thing as long as possible, and I want to keep growing it. And again, didn't come for this purpose. It didn't even hit me until a little early to just mention it. One of the ideas we've kicked around as a club for a bit because of costs in this thing, and with that, the city is more and more working with me. The city of Collinsville owns the Gateway Center, and they're working with me more and more as they see the value of this thing. Not, the Gateway Center is a revenue producing building, but they see that value of something that you really can't put a dollar figure on. And it looks very much like a Collinsville event because it's in Collinsville, so they're willing to start helping us a little bit with some of that also. But some of the things that incur costs, again, one of them that's adds up pretty quick is the food part of it, as we provide that. This year we got off the hook completely because Collinsville High School, all their students worked out a way to deliver food to us on the school from some grant money. So it was just perfect, and maybe something like that will work in the future. But anyway, one of the ideas is that we've had is to reach out to Rotary clubs in communities that send students and see if clubs could potentially cover, like, say, the food for their school to get them there. And I'm really just planting a seed more than anything at this point. But it's something that if we get to a point that we can get Edwardsville High School involved in, that we may reach out to you guys and see if you're interested in such a thing. I think it's a pretty good way to look at things with the different communities involved. It's the way that a few of the communities were selected. It wasn't selected as much. For instance, Freeburg's a bit of an outlier geographically for us, but we had a business in town that wanted to give us money to the first event. So clearly it was kind of that trade-off there. That's what I have. So any questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any measurable metrics you take away from the program to say, we had less of these types of accidents in the community, or is there any data like that?
That's a great question, because that's in the plan for this program. We're a little early for that in the existence of it. That's exactly what they've done in Williamson County. Is used department. Williamson County is down in the Marion area, and they've used, after 10 years, they've been able to show measurable improvements in that 18 to 25 age group, which is really that prime area. In fact, that's when I mentioned earlier, we hit and to me, it was like a common sense thing. And going back to my experiences of being young, you go to driver's ed when you're a sophomore or so, somewhere in there between that summer. And I had a driver's ed teacher approach me this year, a Collinsville driver's ed teacher, and say, hey, you might want to reconsider this. Our junior, since we did both the sophomore and junior class, it's like our juniors are getting more out of this, just that little bit more maturity, and kids aren't driving as quick anymore. They're not, it's a different world. I took that in, I went straight into the Street Smart guys. And this is right at the end of the program. They were packing up to go to Florida. And I said, Ronnie, you got to, and I didn't tell them about that conversation. So you got to experience teaching sophomores and juniors over the last 2 days here. What, feel something different on any of them? He said, Steve, I've been your friend for a few years. I just didn't want to tell you, but you're hitting the wrong class. He said, we like juniors and seniors a lot better. And then taking that with the fact that really it's not the 16-year-old drivers. They usually still act a little safe when they're driving. It's when they get kind of comfortable. And so we're probably going to alter this to a junior class presentation or something right around that. Schools still get to choose to some extent, but we're going to at least try to focus and encourage them to send us the junior classes in the future. But your question is great, and they are seeing results down in that part of the state.
So can you accommodate a lot more? Like, I know how big the Gateway Center is, but I don't know how many.
So the daily of 500, that number of 500 is about all we can do to really accommodate the different presentations also, without overwhelming one room or one presentation. For instance, if we put more than that in with the state police guys, they're not going to be able to get them through some of the things they try to get through in a hurry. So 500 is the daily amount. So we're looking at though being able to accommodate 2,000 kids looking to serve this fall. So a lot of room there. Anything else? All right. Thank you. We are very, very proud of it. I'm very, I am certain.
Now, but it's rather ironic that I think we still fly down there.
Yeah.
That second year, right? And we have to go down,
Sure.
celebrating, let's not throw ourselves with a certain percentage.
Yeah.
So I think with club, we started thinking about how we get, I would love to get my girls. Thank God I never got any issues.
Right. And I'm absolutely certain if I get to the right people at Edwardsville High School, we can accomplish something there. And there's really no criticism to one individual. I've kind of, outside of the sponsorship things that have brought schools to us, I mentioned Freeburg just now. I've used my connection, chiefs of police and communities, say, hey, can you reach out to your school and get this done? The chief here, Jay Keevan, who was the chief here, a great friend of mine, but he just couldn't quite get that to click out for whatever reason. I don't know. But that's a hope. And with the increased up to 700 kids more than what the most we've served in this thing, Edwards will be the first reach out on this. Yes, sir.
So the new superintendent of high school.
Okay. All right. I'm certain it will for dual reasons. Brad Skurdich, the superintendent of the Collinsville School District, is a member of our club also, so he's become a big help now in this thing too. Since he came in about a year ago. Yes, ma'am. To try to do this type of program there, well, I think it'd be super beneficial. I don't know. That's bigger and larger than I've ever really considered up to this point from what we have available to us. But that's a great age group to hit because that's the invincible age. Yeah. Heck yeah. For sure. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, two members, for being here.